Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. I used to believe that marriage was a partnership, a team built on love, trust, and respect. But after years with Jessica, I had come to realize that partnership was the last thing on her mind. She had a way of making me feel small. It wasn't always obvious. It was in the little things, the way she rolled her eyes when I spoke, the way she corrected me in front of others, the way she brushed off my accomplishments as if they were nothing. Over time, the little things added up, chipping away at the confidence I once had. But the worst part? She had convinced me that it was my fault. If she was distant, it was because I wasn't doing enough. If she was cruel, it was because I'd let myself go. If she was cold, it was because I wasn't man enough to keep her attention. And I believed her. Until the night, everything changed. It was her father's birthday dinner, a gathering of family and friends at a fancy restaurant downtown. Jessica loved these events, not because she cared about family, but because they gave her an audience. We had barely sat down before the mockery began. You know, Jessica said, swirling the wine in her glass, Tyler's been working from home lately. Her cousin smirked. Living the dream, huh? Jessica laughed. More like living in sweatpants. I swear, he's turned into a house cat. The table chuckled. I forced a smile, gripping my fork a little tighter. Her mother chimed in. Well, at least he's home to help around the house. Jessica scoffed. Oh, please. Help? The man can barely load a dishwasher without breaking something. Laughter again. I clenched my jaw, feeling my pulse quicken. Come on, Jess, I said, my voice steady. Let's not make this another roast session. She waved me off. Oh, lighten up. It's just a joke. A joke. That was always her excuse. I looked around the table. No one was defending me. No one was stopping her. Because this was normal. This was expected. Something inside me snapped. I set my fork down. You know what's funny, Jessica? You act like you're the perfect wife, but let's be honest. You don't even like being married. You just like having someone to blame for your own unhappiness. The table went silent. Jessica's smile froze. For the first time, she looked caught off guard. I pushed my chair back and stood. Happy birthday, Greg, I said to her father. I'll see you all around. Then I walked out. I didn't look back. For the first time in years, I left Jessica behind. And I never felt stronger. Jessica came home late that night. I had been sitting in the living room, the TV on, but barely registering what was playing. My mind was still at that restaurant, still replaying the moment I finally stood up for myself. She walked in, heels clicking against the hardwood, and tossed her purse onto the counter with a heavy sigh. So that's it? You just walk out and leave me to deal with the embarrassment? I glanced at her, my expression unreadable. Embarrassment? You mean like the kind I deal with every time you turn me into a joke? She scoffed. Oh, come on, Tyler. It was just a little teasing. Teasing, I repeated, shaking my head. That's what you call it. She folded her arms, narrowing her eyes. I think you're overreacting. Of course she did. Jessica had spent years twisting reality until it worked in her favor. But tonight, I wasn't playing along. I turned off the TV and stood, stepping closer. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you built me up instead of tearing me down? She blinked. What? When was the last time you made me feel like I mattered to you? When was the last time you actually respected me instead of treating me like I'm beneath you? She hesitated, but only for a second. Then, just like always, she went on the attack. Oh, give me a break, Tyler. If you had a little more ambition, maybe I'd have something to respect. I felt the words like a slap to the face, but I didn't flinch. I just nodded. Right. There it is. There what is? She asked, rolling her eyes. The truth, I said simply. You don't love me. You don't even like me. You just like having someone to put down so you can feel better about yourself. Her jaw clenched. That's not true. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Isn't it? Because I've spent years trying to be the man you wanted me to be. And the second I push back, you call me weak. That's not a marriage, Jessica. That's abuse. She stared at me, stunned. I had never used that word before, and neither had she, but we both knew it was true. Jessica shook her head, letting out a breathy laugh. Wow, so this is who you are now? Playing the victim? I sighed. I'm done arguing with you. I started walking past her, but she grabbed my arm. Tyler, don't do this, she said, her voice softer now. You're upset. You're taking everything the wrong way. I pull my arm free. No, I'm finally seeing things the right way. She stared at me, searching for something in my face. Probably the old version of me. The one who would back down, apologize, let her win. But that man was gone. I walked into the bedroom and shut the door behind me, locking it. For the first time in our marriage, I was the one shutting her out. And she had no idea what was coming next. The next few days were tense. Jessica barely spoke to me, giving me the cold shoulder, waiting for me to break. But I didn't. Instead, I started watching her closer. Because something wasn't adding up. The way she avoided eye contact. The way she overcompensated with fake sweetness when we were around others. The way she picked fights over things that didn't matter, like she was trying to distract me. And then there were the accusations. "You've been distant lately," she said one morning, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Are you seeing someone else?" I nearly choked on my coffee. "What?" She shrugged. "You're acting weird. Sneaking around. Being secretive." I stared at her, trying to figure out if she was serious. "I work from home, Jessica. If I was sneaking around, you'd know it." She folded her arms. "People can be sneaky." I let out a slow breath. "Are you accusing me of cheating?" "I don't know, Tyler. Am I?" Something about the way she said it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. She was deflecting, projecting. I set my coffee down, watching her carefully. You know, usually when someone is obsessed with accusing their partner of cheating, I paused, letting the words sink in. It's because they're guilty of it themselves. Her expression barely changed, but I caught it. A flicker of something. She forced a laugh. "Oh, please." I didn't say anything. I didn't have to, because in that moment I knew Jessica wasn't just emotionally cruel. She was hiding something, and I was going to find out what. The moment Jessica accused me of cheating, something shifted. I had spent years putting up with her insults, her games, her need to be in control, but this was different. This wasn't just manipulation. This was guilt. And now I needed proof. The next morning, Jessica left early for the gym, as she always did. Normally, I wouldn't think twice about it. She had been obsessed with working out for the past year, always talking about her trainer, always showing off the progress she was making. But now I saw things differently. I waited until she was gone before walking into the bedroom, my heart pounding in my chest. I had never snooped before. I had never felt the need to. But now, every instinct in my body told me that something was off. I started with her nightstand. Nothing but a few books, some hand lotion, and a bottle of sleep aids. Her closet was next. I pushed aside the neat rows of dresses and shoes, scanning the shelves, looking for anything out of place. And then I found it. A small black gift box tucked behind a stack of sweaters. My stomach twisted as I pulled it out, my fingers cold against the smooth surface. This wasn't something I had ever seen before, and I already knew it wasn't for me. I slowly lifted the lid. Inside was a sleek, silver watch, men's style, engraved on the back. My breath caught as I turned it over, reading the inscription. To new personal bests, J. Jessica. The air in the room felt thick, pressing in around me. This wasn't just a random gift. This was intimate, personal, something that had meaning to her, something meant for another man. My legs felt shaky as I sat down on the edge of the bed, staring at the watch in my hands. I wanted to believe this was a misunderstanding. I wanted to believe there was some kind of logical explanation. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Jessica had spent the past few months picking fights, making me feel like I was the problem, accusing me of things I hadn't done. And now I understood why. Because she was the one who was cheating. The weight of the realization settled over me like a lead blanket. Every insult, every cruel remark, every night she came home late from the gym, it all made sense now. She wasn't just trying to tear me down. She was trying to justify what she was doing behind my back. And the worst part? She thought I was too blind to see it. I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening around the watch. Not anymore. I stood up, carefully placing the box back exactly where I had found it. But before I closed the lid, I made a small change. I swapped the expensive watch with an old, broken one from my dresser. Jessica wouldn't notice. Not until she handed it over. And when she did, I wanted to be there to see the look on her face. I spent the next few days watching Jessica like a detective. Every excuse, every phone call, every sudden mood swing, I paid attention to it all. And the more I watched, the more obvious it became. She wasn't just having an affair. She was deep in it. She'd disappear for hours at a time, always claiming she had a new workout routine. She guarded her phone like it was a state secret. And when I casually asked about her gym trainer, the man who had suddenly become such a big part of her life, she got defensive. "Why do you care so much?" She snapped one night over dinner. I shrugged, taking a sip of my drink. "Just making conversation." She narrowed her eyes. "You never used to ask about this stuff before." I smiled. "Guess I'm just paying more attention these days." She didn't like that. Not one bit. A few nights later, I got my first real piece of evidence. Jessica had gone to bed early, her phone left charging on the nightstand. I waited until her breathing was slow and steady before I carefully reached over and grabbed it. Locked, of course. But Jessica was predictable. I entered the passcode, our anniversary date. She never thought I paid attention to things like that. Her messages opened instantly. And there it was. Dozens of texts. Not from a friend. Not from a coworker. From her trainer. I scrolled through, my stomach twisting with every word. They had been careful. Not too many details, no direct admissions. But the tone, the frequency, the secrecy, it was all there. She was in deep. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because if she had spent months making me feel like a fool, I was about to make her feel even worse. The next morning, Jessica was all smiles. "Good mood today?" I asked, watching her pour coffee. She glanced up, smirking. "Yeah, I guess." I nodded. "Big plans today?" She hesitated, just for a second, but I saw it. Just the usual. Gym, errands, maybe dinner with the girls. I smiled. "Sounds fun." She leaned in, pressing a quick kiss to my cheek. "I'll see you later." I watched her walk out the door, my hands resting against the counter. She thought she had everything under control. She thought she was winning. But in reality, she had no idea what was coming. Jessica thought she had me wrapped around her finger. She had no idea I was already steps ahead of her. After discovering the texts and swapping the expensive watch with a broken one, I didn't rush. I played the long game. If I had learned anything from being married to Jessica, it was that she thrived on control. She manipulated situations, twisted conversations, and always made herself the victim. If I confronted her too soon, she'd spin it, turn around on me, make me the villain. But not this time. This time, I was going to destroy her narrative before she even had the chance to write it. The first step was gathering more proof. The texts were damning, but they weren't enough. I needed something undeniable. So I got creative. One night, while Jessica was in the shower, I took her phone and installed a call recording app. She never locked her phone when she was home, too confident that I'd never check. The app ran silently, logging everything. Every whispered conversation, every hushed giggle, every lie. Then, I set up a GPS tracker on her car. It wasn't hard, just a simple plug-in that linked to my phone. Within minutes, I had real-time updates on her location. The next day, I watched her leave for the gym. Only this time, she didn't go to the gym. Her car took a different route, heading straight to an upscale apartment complex across town. I had her, but I wasn't done yet. Step 2 was setting the trap. I needed a way to flip the script, to make Jessica feel the exact same paranoia and doubt she had forced on me for months. If she wanted to accuse me of cheating, I was going to give her something to lose her mind over. That's when I had the idea. A fake affair. I bought a cheap mannequin online, one of those lifelike ones used in department stores. I dressed in a hoodie, placed it under the covers in our bed, and dimmed the lights just enough that it looked like someone was lying there. Then, I took one of my old dress shirts and smeared bright red lipstick along the collar. I placed it on the floor by the bed, like it had been carelessly tossed aside in a hurry. The final touch? A half-empty wine glass on my nightstand. Everything looked perfect. Now all I had to do was get Jessica to walk in on it. That night, Jessica came home later than usual. I was in the kitchen, pretending to be on the phone when she walked in. Yeah, I'll see you soon," I said casually before hanging up. Jessica narrowed her eyes. "Who was that?" I shrugged. "Just a friend." She frowned. "Since when do you have friends you talk to that late?" I smirked. Since when do you care? That hit a nerve. She hated not being in control. She glanced toward the hallway, her suspicion growing. What have you been up to? I poured myself a drink, taking my time. Just had some company over. She stiffened. Company? I sipped my drink, watching her carefully. Bait taken. Jessica set her purse down and headed straight for the bedroom. I followed, staying just a few steps behind. She pushed the door open, and for a second, she froze. The dim lighting, the mannequin under the covers, the lipstick-stained shirt on the floor. Everything registered in her mind at once. What the? Her voice was sharp, breathless, angry. She marched to the bed and ripped the covers back. Silence. Then confusion. Then pure rage. She spun around, eyes blazing. What is this? I leaned against the doorframe, completely calm. Oh, you mean my little setup? I was just returning the favor. She blinked, her face twisting. What are you talking about? I took my phone out and tapped the screen. Her voice filled the room. I miss you. I hate sneaking around, but he's so clueless. I swear, Tyler doesn't suspect a thing. Jessica's face drained of color. The recording kept playing. Her voice, her words, her betrayal. I took a step closer, lower my voice. Turns out, the real cheater isn't me. Her breathing turned shallow, her hands trembling. You were spying on me? I laughed. She actually had the audacity to be angry. Spying? I said, Jessica, I gave you every chance to be honest. Instead, you lied. You manipulated me. You accused me of things just to cover up your own guilt. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She knew. She knew she had lost. And I wasn't done yet. Step 3? Public humiliation. While she was still frozen in shock, I tapped another button on my phone. The entire thing, her freakout, the recording, my reveal, was now streaming live to social media. Friends, family, everyone who had heard her endless stories about her unfaithful husband was now watching the truth unfold in real time. Her phone buzzed, and buzzed, and buzzed. Her face went ghost white. She lunged for my phone, but I stepped back easily. Too late, I said, pocketing it. Jessica clutched her head, pacing like a trapped animal. Tyler, you don't have to do this. We can fix this. Just delete it. I exhaled slowly. No, Jessica, you don't get to erase this. You don't get to rewrite the story like you always do. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. She had spent months making me feel crazy, making me feel like I was the bad guy. And now, she was the one with no way out. I grabbed my keys off the dresser. I'd say it's been fun, but we both know that's a lie. I walked to the door, pausing just long enough to look over my shoulder. Enjoy explaining this to everyone. And then, I walked out. For good. I didn't go home that night. Not because I didn't have the right to, but because I wanted Jessica to sit in the wreckage of what she had done. Instead, I checked into a hotel, poured myself a drink, and watched as my phone exploded with notifications. Texts, missed calls, voicemails. From Jessica, from mutual friends, even from her gym trainer, whose number I now recognized after digging through her messages. I didn't answer. I didn't even listen to the voicemails. I just sat back and enjoyed the show. By morning, the fallout was everywhere. Jessica's carefully curated world had imploded overnight. The social media live stream had done exactly what I intended. Friends, family, co-workers, everyone had seen the truth with their own eyes. No more manipulation. No more twisting the story. She was caught. I let her panic for 2 days before I finally decided to face her. Not because I wanted to hear her excuses, but because I wanted to see just how far she would go to try and salvage what little was left of her reputation. So I texted her, "Meet me at the house. 1 hour." The response was immediate. "Thank you. Please, let's talk." Talk, right? I arrived exactly when I said I would, parking in the driveway like I still own the place. Because technically I did, at least for now. Jessica was already inside, waiting for me. The moment I stepped into the house, she rushed toward me. "Tyler, I held up a hand. Don't." She stopped short, swallowing hard. Her eyes were red, her hair a mess. She had spent hours crying. That much was obvious. Good. I shut the door behind me, leaning against it. "So, go ahead. Let's hear it." She wrung her hands together. I messed up. I know I did. But you, Tyler, you put everything out there for the world to see. You humiliated me. I scoffed. You humiliated yourself. All I did was pull back the curtain. Her breath hitched. I never meant to hurt you. I laughed, shaking my head. That's the thing, Jessica. You did. You wanted to hurt me. That's why you spent months tearing me down, making me feel like I was the problem, when the truth is, you were just covering for yourself. She swallowed, blinking rapidly. I don't know why I did it. I tilted my head. You don't? She hesitated, because she did know. She just didn't want to say it. So I said it for her. You liked the power, I continued, my voice cold. You liked having control. You liked making me feel insecure while you had someone else waiting in the wings. It made you feel superior. She let out a shaky breath. Tyler, please. I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapping the screen. You're still trending, by the way. People are having a great time dissecting those recordings. Her face crumpled. You ruined me. I let out a slow exhale. No, Jessica. You ruined yourself. Silence stretched between us. For the first time in our entire relationship, Jessica had nothing to say, because there were no more lies left to tell. I took a slow lap around the living room, letting my presence unsettle her. This house, this space, it had once felt like a prison. But now I felt like I had one. Jessica was still frozen in place, her hands trembling. So what happens now? I smirked. That's the best part. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folder. She stared at it like it was a loaded weapon. What is that? I tossed it onto the coffee table. Divorce papers. Her lips parted. Tyler. I cut her off. I already filed. You'll get your official notice soon. I just thought I'd do you the courtesy of handing you your future in person. Tears welled in her eyes. You're really doing this? I sighed, shaking my head. Jessica, you made this decision the moment you stepped outside of our marriage. The moment you accused me of cheating while you were off with your trainer. I nodded toward the folder. This is just the consequence. She wiped at her eyes, laughing bitterly. So what? You get to just walk away? Act like none of this meant anything? I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. Jessica, you walked away first. I'm just following your lead. That shut her up. She stood there, breathing heavily, staring at the divorce papers like they held all the answers she didn't want to face. She wanted me to forgive her, to fight for her, but there was nothing left to fight for. I turned toward the door, my work here finished. Her voice wavered behind me. Do you still love me? I paused, my hand on the doorknob. Then, I turned back and gave her the final blow. I don't think I ever loved you, I said simply. Not really. I think I loved who I thought you were. But the real you? I shrugged. She was never worth loving. Her face crumpled. I walked out, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel a single ounce of regret. Leaving Jessica in that house, standing in the wreckage of her own making, should have been the most satisfying moment of my life. And in many ways it was. But as I drove away, I felt something else creeping in. Not regret, not sadness, but exhaustion. I had spent years fighting battles I didn't even realize I was in. Years being manipulated, humiliated, and made to feel small by someone who was supposed to have my back. And now it was over. But what was left of me after all of it? I wasn't sure, but I was about to find out. The first thing I did was cut Jessica off completely. I blocked her number, blocked her on social media, changed the passwords on every shared account. She didn't get access to me anymore. No more late-night manipulations. No more desperate attempts to pull me back in. The second thing I did was move out. I had already been preparing for it. My things were packed, waiting in a storage unit across town. I had signed a lease on a small but comfortable apartment, nothing flashy, just mine. I walked into that empty space for the first time and took a deep breath, letting the silence settle around me. No passive-aggressive comments. No judgmental looks. Just peace. It felt good, better than I expected. But the real test came 3 days later. Jessica showed up at my apartment. I had just gotten home from grabbing dinner when I heard the knock. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the best of me. I opened the door to find her standing there, looking different. Her hair was a mess. Her face was pale, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She wasn't wearing makeup, something I had never seen before. She always made sure to look perfect, to present herself as untouchable. Now, she looked like she had been hit by a train. "Tyler," she breathed. "Please, just talk to me." I didn't move. Why would I do that? She swallowed hard. "Because She hesitated, her voice cracking. "Because I need you to understand that I never meant for it to go this far." I let out a sharp laugh. "You never meant for what? To cheat? To lie? To make me feel like I was the bad guy while you ran around behind my back?" She winced. "I was lost, okay? I was insecure. I held up a hand. "Stop. Just stop." She blinked at me. I sighed, leaning against the doorframe. "Jessica, let me ask you something. If I hadn't caught you, if I hadn't exposed you, would you have ever stopped?" She froze. And that was my answer. Her lip trembled. "Tyler, please," I shook my head. "You're not here because you miss me. You're not here because you love me. You're here because you lost. Because everyone knows what you did. Because your world is crumbling, and now you want me to fix it." Tears welled up in her eyes. "That's not true." I tilted my head. "Isn't it?" She didn't say anything. Because we both knew the truth. She had spent years tearing me down, making me feel like I wasn't enough. And now, when she was finally facing the consequences of her own actions, she had the audacity to ask for my sympathy. I exhaled. "Go home, Jessica." She let out a shaky breath. "So that's it? After everything, you're just done?" I met her gaze. "I was done the moment you chose someone else." She wiped at her face, nodding slowly, like she finally understood. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. I shut the door, and this time I felt nothing. The next few weeks were a strange mix of freedom and adjustment. I no longer had to answer to anyone. I no longer had to watch my words, tread carefully, or brace myself for the next insult disguised as a joke. But there were moments, small ones, where I caught myself expecting a fight, expecting a dig, expecting to be undermined. Years of being conditioned to walk on eggshells didn't just disappear overnight. But I was healing. And then, one day, I got a message from a mutual friend. "Dude, you have to see this." Attached was a screenshot of Jessica's gym trainer's social media. His relationship status had changed to single. I stared at the screen for a long moment before laughing. I could already guess what had happened. The moment Jessica became a liability, he cut her loose. She had torched her marriage, ruined her reputation. And for what? A guy who didn't even stick around? Karma was working fast. I sent a simple reply. I saw it coming. And I had. Jessica thought she was untouchable. She thought she could manipulate, lie, and cheat her way through life without consequence. But now she was the one who had to face herself. And I had never been happier. Jessica had lost control. That was the one thing she had never prepared for. For years, she had dictated every part of our marriage. How I acted, how I responded, even how I saw myself. But now I was the one in control. And she hated it. A week after she showed up at my apartment, the divorce papers were served. I knew the second she got them because my phone started blowing up. Calls, voicemails, texts. I ignored them all. Then came the legal counterattack. My lawyer called me 2 days later. Jessica's lawyer reached out. He said, "She's pushing for an unfair division of assets, claiming emotional distress, reputational damage, trying to make it seem like you're the one who ruined her life." I sighed, rubbing my temple. Of course she is. She also wants spousal support. That made me laugh. Loudly. Jessica was demanding money from me? After cheating, lying, and publicly humiliating me for months? The audacity. "What's our move?" I asked. My lawyer's voice was calm, confident. "We fight, and we win." I grinned. "Let's do it." The first official divorce meeting was set for the following week. A conference room. 2 sides of a long table. Me and my lawyer on one side. Jessica and hers on the other. She walked in with her usual false confidence. Hair styled perfectly, designer purse in hand. But underneath it, I could see the cracks. The tired eyes. The tension in her shoulders. The way her fingers gripped the chair as she sat down. She was barely holding herself together. And she knew she was about to lose. Her lawyer, a stiff-looking guy in an expensive suit, started first. "My client believes she is entitled to fair compensation for the emotional and financial damages caused by the way this marriage ended." I chuckled, shaking my head. You mean the way she ended it? Jessica shot me a glare, but I kept my face calm, unreadable. Her lawyer cleared his throat. Regardless of past issues, Mrs. Reynolds maintains that she was unfairly portrayed in a negative light, which has affected her professional and personal reputation. My lawyer leaned forward, placing a thick folder on the table. Unfairly portrayed? He flipped it open, revealing printed screenshots of Jessica's texts with her trainer. The ones where she called me clueless, the ones where she planned secret meetings, the ones where she laughed at how easy it was to manipulate me. Jessica paled. Her lawyer hesitated. My lawyer held up a hand. Before you say anything, let's not forget the voice recordings. He slid a flash drive across the table. We have recordings of Jessica admitting to the affair, admitting to gaslighting her husband, admitting that she never planned on stopping. If this goes to court, these recordings become public record. Is that really what your client wants? Jessica clenched her fists. Her lawyer turned to her, whispering something under his breath. Her jaw tightened, her breath shaky. She was cornered. I leaned back, crossing my arms. You don't get to play the victim, Jessica. Not this time. Her lawyer sighed. What exactly are you proposing? My lawyer smiled. We stick to the prenup. Jessica gets what she brought into the marriage, which, as we all know, isn't much. No alimony. No division of assets. She walks away with nothing except her personal belongings. Jessica snapped. Are you kidding me? She hissed. Tyler, you can't just leave me with nothing. I met her gaze, my voice steady. I'm not leaving you with nothing. Jessica, you did that to yourself. She gritted her teeth. I was your wife. I smirked, and you were his mistress. Silence. Her lawyer sighed again, rubbing his temple. He turned to her. You're not going to win this in court, Jessica. This deal is better than what a judge will give you. Jessica's breathing was uneven, her hands trembling as she grabbed a pen. She didn't want to sign. She wanted to fight, but she knew she couldn't win. After a long moment, she scrawled her signature at the bottom of the documents. It was over. I exhaled slowly, feeling a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lift off my shoulders. Jessica pushed the papers away, glaring at me. I hope you enjoy your freedom. I smiled. I already do. She stood abruptly, grabbing her purse and storming out. My lawyer watched her go, then turned to me with a smirk. That went well. I chuckled. Yeah, it did. For the first time in years, I was free, and it felt incredible. A week later, the divorce was finalized. No money, no assets, nothing. Jessica had spent years thinking she could manipulate her way through life, using people, playing the victim. But in the end, she played herself. And I had won. As I left the courthouse, my phone buzzed. A message from a friend. Just a heads up, Jessica's been telling people you ruined her life, that you cheated on her. I laughed, shaking my head. Of course, she was still trying to rewrite the story, still trying to control the narrative. But the difference now, no one was listening anymore. Jessica had nothing left. Meanwhile, I had a whole new life ahead of me. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was finally ready to live it. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like, and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.